All right, so again, thank you all for joining us. As I mentioned, my name is Brian Fournette and I work in the Office of Career Strategy. Today's session is to give you a little bit of an overview of what the Office of Career Strategy is and how it can help you over the course of your time at Yale. If you've been looking at your inbox, you know that I've been emailing you at some point or another, probably since middle of June. So I appreciate all of your patience with me. And a lot of you have been responsive, and I do appreciate that. I think it's worth providing a little bit of context if you're wondering why you're hearing from me, and I think some of that's been touched upon in the emails, but you should know that the master's students at Yale have a really interesting and unique time frame in terms of what their journey is. Many of the industries, not all, but many of the industries that a lot of master's students tend to be interested in include industries such as technology, finance, and consulting. The overwhelming majority of those employers in those industries recruit in the early fall, which means that sometime around the beginning of September, those employers either physically or remotely come to campus to recruit master's students. This also happens to be the time that you're acclimating to a 1-year or a 2-year program, getting used to campus, getting used to that new rhythm, and all of a sudden you may have heard some rumor about submitting an application somewhere for something. And that can be really daunting. I think that's daunting in like normal times. That can be really daunting when we're doing everything remotely, when we're doing anything virtually. And there's a lot of sort of stress and potential anxiety about the situation that we find ourselves in. So our desire is to help minimize that for you, particularly in the areas we can control. And those areas are rooted in your aspirations for what you wish to do after this educational experience. So my job is to make sure that you're sort of aware of that rhythm and that you know how to best acclimate to that rhythm, and then also utilize the resources that Yale has at their disposal for you so that you can best succeed. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Again, some of this may be redundant from the emails that I had sent earlier in the summer, but that's always good. Redundancy is okay in this context. Or if you're like, Brian, I remember you mentioning something, now's your wonderful time to challenge me on it and ask for clarification. I'm more than happy to provide. So I'm going to just share my screen. And you are always welcome to interrupt or ask a question or throw it into the chat. And Becca or Lisa can kind of stop me as I'm going here, and if I don't catch the bell going off. But again, I wanted to thank you all for your time. Let's see here. All right, so it's worth understanding what the Office of Career Strategy really is and what its limitations are. The Office of Career Strategy supports all of the students in the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, those engaged with the exploration of non-academic careers. So this is more relevant to those at the PhD level. We do not typically support or have the resources to support those who want to go off to be tenured faculty, for example. But everything else under the sun, we have that ability to support. Our office has a total of 17 staff members with 11 career advisors. Hunja Shin, our director, and myself serve as those career advisors who explicitly work with graduate students and postdocs. We also have our 6 McDougall Career Fellows, Becca being one of them, who also do a large part of our programming throughout the course of the year. So again, another reason why we have Becca here is you'll probably see Becca and our other career fellows over the course of the year. Our office, the Office of Career Strategy overall, as I mentioned already, works with all students of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, all of Yale's postdocs, and all of the students of Yale College. So I mentioned those 17 staff members, and then you only see 2 names. The rest of our staff largely support the Yale College population, so you can imagine how engaged the Yale College population is. But that means you have our undivided attention, and we've put together a pattern of events and a sequence of events and resources that should help you excel in this process. So what do we offer you? What are we here to do? I think primarily our resource, our best and most notable resource, is our advising. We have a number of drop-in hours that take place when classes are in session. These are 15-minute appointments, and they're available at our primary office. Again, some of this is sort of based on when we have in-person sessions versus virtual, but when they are in person, they are available at 55 Whitney Avenue. Oh, I'm so sorry, 1 second, actually. I'm showing you something that's a little older. The sessions that we have will begin in mid-September. It's worth noting that. This year, our advising sessions tend to be impacted by the fact that they are exclusively virtual. And that exclusive, let me get this going. There we are. Sorry about that. So our advising and our drop-in hours are this year planning on being virtual, which means while they will be taking place when classes are in session, they are likely to begin in mid-September. They will be taking place at 55 Whitney Avenue, otherwise, in conventional times, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Now, the idea of the 15-minute drop-in session is if you wanted to come in and have a quick question. You have that third draft of a resume that needs approval. You have a question about submitting an application to a particular position. You'd like a cover letter reviewed. You have a quick question about negotiating an offer. These are all things that conventionally can take place and be sort of resolved largely within that 15-minute window. And so we try to make those as a first come, first serve session so that you're best able to get what you need and move on with your day. Now, for more in-depth conversations and conversations that may take place over a certain length of time, we have our scheduled advising appointments. Now, these are 30 to 60 minutes. And again, conventionally, they would be held at a number of locations across campus. That includes the Sterling Hall of Medicine, which is at the medical campus, Founders Hall, which is the McDougall Center, and our base office at 55 Whitney Avenue. Currently, all appointments are hosted via Zoom, which makes them, I think, much easier. You can schedule this as you're, just trying to, in between classes, you're cooking dinner, whatever the case may be. I think it makes things a little bit more democratized, and thus far, we've had some great successes with that model. And realistically, we'll probably retain a lot of that model as we, move into whatever the next phase of all this is. All of the appointments are made through Yale CareerLink. Now, many of you are already familiar with Yale CareerLink, as it is one of the resources that we offer, it is the resource by which you would make your one-on-one master's resume review appointments that some of you have already done. One of the services that we extend to our master's students in advance is the ability for you to have your resume reviewed by our office before your arrival on campus, given the hastened pace of the recruiting season, as I mentioned at the beginning of the session. All of that is done through Yale CareerLink, and we'll get to Yale CareerLink in a moment, but just to kind of let you know, that's how it all connects. We also have our in-person and online workshops on topics relevant to the non-academic job search over the course of the year. And again, right now, everything's going to be virtual and online, but in other times, they would be also in person. And you can see an example of the different categories and topics that we talk about, things about resume development, salary negotiation, interview preparation, understanding the job search in a more high-level overview, planning career development over a longer period of time. If you're here for a 2-year program, you don't have to think about recruiting right away, and therefore you may have a little bit more wiggle room in terms of understanding how this process works and how you can grow and develop over the course of your time here at Yale through your program. We also have a lot of these topics covered in what we call our animated advice shorts. So we realize that not everyone has time to sit through a 30, 40, 50-minute workshop. And that is something of a luxury at times, particularly during the times of the year where you are busier, if it's midterms or you're just in the middle of a project or just life is a bit hectic. Therefore, most of these topics are also covered in these sort of bite-sized 3-minute snippets that we animated a while ago. So that way you don't have to see like me and my giraffe wardrobe over the course of time. But the idea is that this allows for you to get the bits and pieces that you absolutely need regarding these topics and move on with your day. You can then use that information in more depth through a 15-minute drop-in session or one of the half-hour or 60-minute appointments. It allows for you to leverage all of the resources and the information that we have at our disposal 24 hours a day. We also have our interactive mock interview system. This is through a resource called Big Interview, which is located in your Yale CareerLink account. So interviewing is going to be an inevitable part of your job search, and you don't want that to sneak up on you, right? And I will admit that preparing for job interviewing is not exactly like the most fun usage of your time, but it is certainly a necessary one. And so we have this interactive mock interview system where you can select per topic, per industry, the type of interview you're looking to prepare for, and then you will have an opportunity to virtually engage in a mock interview, and you can record yourself responding to the questions that are being asked of you. This then allows for you to then review that video, which can be mildly uncomfortable depending on how you go. But the idea there is you can best prepare and adapt and improve over the course of time. So again, we also do mock interviews through our advising appointments, so you always have that opportunity as well. But again, if in a pinch you're trying to prepare for something tomorrow and it's 11 p.m., you certainly have an opportunity there. We also offer you dozens of employer recruiting events, information sessions, and networking opportunities throughout the course of the year. As mentioned, many of them will happen at the beginning of the fall term, which is why we're talking about this all today, to make sure you're best prepared. This is not meant to inundate you or overwhelm. It's really just a matter of being aware of what's coming up and budgeting your time. Just as you would with extracurricular clubs or your own personal life, it's just a matter of finding which pieces you need so that your schedule is as best put together as it can be. You also, as of right now and in perpetuity, have access to our employer database, which is located in Yale CareerLink. This employer database has over 10,000 registered employers, related contacts, and listed opportunities that you can access at any time. As alumni of Yale, you will continue to have access to this resource in perpetuity. So there's no rush to download all of it or wade through it at this point, although you certainly can if you felt so inclined. You also have access to a resource called Cross Campus. And Cross Campus is a networking, mentoring database put forth by the Yale Alumni Association. And you have the opportunity to join Cross Campus today. Cross Campus allows you to connect with thousands of Yale alumni in a mentoring or informational interviewing capacity. There are different groups within Cross Campus that you can join. There's a graduate school of arts and sciences group, for example. And I highly, highly, highly recommend that you join Cross Campus. And you can do that again today, and you will have access to that in perpetuity. The idea here is that for every job listing or employer info session that I can provide for you, and my office can provide for you, those are important, they are helpful, but engaging with alumni is just as, if not more so, important. It's also this communicative skill that you refine and hone over the course of these engagements that will also help best prepare you for your interviewing, but also the knowledge that you gain of a given industry or a given career path will help you with the development of your resume or any cover letter that you write. So it really is like the good hygiene of this entire process. So I highly recommend you consider that process and begin to engage. And it's also worth noting that your alma mater prior to Yale probably has a resource similar, and you should also be aware of what that resource is. You should be leveraging as many resources as you possibly can at a pace and rate that is appropriate for you. But just know that you have Yale's, but you probably also have another one in your alma mater. Now, it's worth acknowledging that our graduate students go off into a range of different industries. I mentioned three earlier, three kind of big bucket industries of technology, finance, and consulting. And as you can see, those are high up on this prioritized list of where graduate students are seeking employment. This is data is a couple of years old now, but you can see that the big whopper response is 15 or just under 15%. That's not a big percentage. So while it is true that there are trends amongst industries, there's no designated one path to go. It's not to say that all graduate students go off into X. And so while we want you to explore your own interests and to identify where your passions lie and how to pursue those passions, it is important to understand that you need not just follow the crowd, because there is no crowd, as these numbers kind of indicate. And I do think that's good. I think sometimes people want to just see where everybody's going and then use that to ascertain if it's right for them. And I think that this list can provide for that. But as you can see, it's not to say 40% of graduate students go off into one thing. So this should be, while it is a short period of time that you will be here at Yale, this is an opportunity for you to explore. It is an opportunity for you to ponder and contemplate what it is you want to do, why you want to do it, and what skills do you possess to help meet that goal. So our idea here is we want to have you make the most of the fall. That's why I was reaching out to you back in June, hopefully not too regularly. And the idea is we want you to best leverage these resources so that you can be successful starting today. The idea here is to best utilize the resources that are available to you in the fall, and we want to help you understand what those resources are so that you can best prepare. Obviously, our advising As I mentioned, I think it's our primary resource that we provide to you as students. And we want to make sure that you think to use our advising as you see fit. Last fall, we saw 355 graduate students within the first 3 months of the semester. As I mentioned, there's 2 of us, and we were able to see nearly 400 folks in 3 months. So try me, right? I think it's worth, trying to schedule that appointment, and you have my email address. So if there's some reason you can't find a time that works for you, you let us know. To date, that has not been a problem. I'm knocking at my desk here and hoping that continues to not be a problem. But I think we've had a good track record of making sure that we can make sure that you have the access that you need. This is also why, and I'll put the plug in again for our one-on-one resume reviews, because many of our appointments are where people just want us to look at their resumes. That makes logical sense. And we've been offering and continue to offer to you through mid-August the exclusive opportunity to meet with our staff. Now I say exclusive because you're the only students that get to do this right now. These hours that we've dedicated are only for master's students. It's not to say this is the only time you can come to do this, but right now you're the only game in town. So we understand that this is a primary need for you, and we want you to feel empowered to leverage that resource. So right now we still have dozens of slots open for our one-on-one resume reviews that you can do through Yale Career Link, and we'll go to Yale Career Link in a moment. If you've already done one, congratulations, thank you for participating. But if you need another draft looked at, sign up for another one. They're there for you. You can use as many of them as you'd like. So again, feel empowered to do so, but there's no rush either. I mean, if you haven't put a resume together, I mean, I do think now's a great time, but this isn't like, I don't want to make it seem like, oh, the clock is ticking. Like, we want you to just feel good about being able to leverage this resource. And again, the advising component allows for that. This is also a good time, and I know it feels weird because you haven't gotten here yet, and you haven't started classes yet, but it is a time to begin to consider, and I think because you're in a master's program, I mean, you've self-selected to be a master's student, the master's program, is a finite program, a particularly finite program compared to like a PhD program. What is it you want to do with this degree? What is it you want to do with this experience? And the investigation of different industries or career paths or job functions is a necessary one, because not everyone's showing up with the answers to those questions. And if you are one of those people that doesn't have the answer to those questions, that's okay. The idea here is that there's time for that, but we need to be responsible. That is our responsibility to determine what this is going to be. So I ask for you to begin to contemplate that. And we don't need to have the answers in a day. We can change our minds down the road. You can begin to investigate something and determine this is not for you. That's absolutely valid. But the reality is here, we need to make sure that we're at least openly considering these things. And again, there is no one path, as the percentages you saw earlier indicate. So you do have this sort of bounty of choices in front of you, which can be a tad overwhelming at times. But that's why we also want you to establish these employer connections. So over the course of the fall, and again, this is why we're having you prepare for this, a lot of our employers make their presence known now in this context virtually, but we have these virtual industry-specific nights that will be held in the fall. And you can see the different industries listed below: boutique consulting, healthcare consulting, finance, consumer products, software engineering, biomedical engineering, startups, entrepreneurialism, nonprofit, etc. We cover the gamut. But most of these employers will be showing up within the first 6 weeks of the semester. This is not your only opportunity to engage with these employers, but it is a good time for you to be informed of who you are as a professional, hence the resume, and also have some ideas of maybe where you want to explore, because this is an opportunity for you to test the waters. And if you like what you see, you throw an application in the ring, right? So this is a good way for you to kind of get your feet wet in that regard, while you're also kind of taking in a lot of the other sort of novel aspects of being a graduate student at Yale University. We don't have to have all our decisions today, but we want you to at least be aware of your ability to participate in these important events. So, and it's worth noting that a lot of times this is often seen as like an undergraduate issue, like, oh, it's that time of year for those seniors or juniors, whatever the case may be, and it's not untrue. But a lot of our graduate students are making more of their presence known at these events. I mean, last year alone, we saw 15% of the total attendees were graduate students, and that covers PhDs as well, which we think is fantastic. Our master's students absolutely, historically, have taken advantage of these events, because a lot of the times the employers that are here on campus or virtually coming to campus to pursue graduating Yale College seniors will also be looking for those master's students as well at the same time. So why not capitalize on that moment? All right, so real quickly, this is how you get a job, right? One slide, nice and easy, all your answers right here. But the reality of it is the complexities of it are sort of understandable. The phases of the non-academic job search, of which I believe there are two, this philosophical phase and this practical phase, many of us would instinctively jump to the practical, where we're just going to churn out application after application. We're going to find opportunities. We're going to go to all the career fairs. We're going to throw our resume in the proverbial bucket and just cross our fingers and hope that we get that call. And while I wouldn't dismiss that as nothing, I do think that is somewhat erroneous, in that we are not doing the necessary groundwork to make sure that that representation of self that is in the resume, the physical resume, is not as strong as it can be. And or we're pursuing industries or jobs or career paths that we think we're supposed to do just because I'm an IDE student, because I'm a biostatistics major, whatever the case may be. We sometimes aren't thinking, is this what I want to do, and why is this what I want to do, and how has what I've done previously worked me up to this career path? So those are necessary questions to ponder. So this philosophical side of the slide, identifying your interests, your values, your skills, understanding how this degree, this master's experience is helping deepen your skill set, investigating those other employers and industries through this reconnaissance, and understanding that you are best informed to answer the question, why do I want to do this? Or how have I prepared for this? All of this helps create what we call a professional narrative. And that professional narrative is what is reflected through the resume. So if you have an academic CV, or you're just developing your resume for the first time, or you haven't touched that resume since junior year, we need to develop that new sense of self, because this is a new experience. You're about to begin and embark upon that new experience. And so my question is, yeah, okay, we can't talk about what we've done at Yale just yet, but what's brought you here? I guarantee you that has been modified over the course of time. And that is what we want you to begin to consider through the exercise or the availability of those one-on-one resume review appointments that we make available now, because now's the time to at least ponder that. It may change over time, it will modify itself over time, but it's important today that you begin to consider what that looks like, because only then can you move over to the practical side of the slide, which is then identifying employers and making contacts and applying to jobs. I won't say that part's easy, but it's more determined, right? It is firmer to say, like, I will go apply to jobs. I know what that means. I know what documentation I need to go to apply for a job. But the idea of, are we putting our best sense of self forward via that application, is a little bit more nebulous. And that's what we want to make sure that you walk into that process confidently and with a firm understanding of who you are. Okay, so that's what we're working on over the course of the year. But I think there's a lot we can do right now so that you arrive with that confidence as well. That's what we're here to help you with. So first steps, next steps, we got to do something next, right? So hopefully, again, many of you have already signed up for your one-on-one resume appointment. If you haven't, again, you know I'm advocating for it. If you already did one and we gave you a whole bunch of feedback, do another one. Give us a shot. We also have a newsletter. Our newsletter goes out every Sunday, and that newsletter is an important sort of finger on the pulse of what is going on, not only in our office, but across campus in a professional context. And you're going to get a lot of emails and a lot of newsletters, and I will apologize for my part of that already. But the idea here is that you want to try to stay as best informed as you can. And I know this is like drinking out of a fire hose at this point, but our newsletter is going to help allow for you to have the firmest understanding of what is going on in terms of your professional development while you're here at Yale. So please keep an eye out for that one. You have the ability to access our career assessment tools. Our career assessment tools, admittedly, are primarily for PhD students, but you can use them. There's no harm in using them. Those two are Imagine PhD and My IDP. The links will be available. You're going to get sent these slides later, so don't worry about any of that. If you use your Yale email address, it is free to leverage those assessments. They take there's three, again, values, interests, and skills. They take 10 minutes each, so in a half hour, you can get a little bit more information of what it is you may want to do. Your ability to do that reconnaissance and that matching we talked about in the prior slide can be done through a couple of different resources that are linkable here. We also have an online pre-recorded CV to resume conversion guide and workshop. And again, you may not all have academic CVs, but you can always improve your resume, as I've sort of made that point known, and that session pre-recorded allows for you to do that. One of the first resources that I gave you access to way back in June when I emailed you was the ability to participate in our online resume review. So you don't want to meet with me, you don't have the time, that's fine. Or you're further along, you don't need to do that, that's fine. We don't take offense to that. What you can do is submit your resume at ocs.resumereview@yale.edu, and you can have your resume get reviewed by one of our staff within 5 to 7 business days. So if you're not in a rush and you know you're pretty far along in your resume development, this is a nice way to kind of put a little shine and polish on it. You can still use Yale CareerLink, which we'll get to in a second, to identify employers. We also have other resources that allow for you to do that. And then your networking can begin today. Not that it has to, but if you're that kind of just go get them type, you can begin engaging with people that have been to Yale and say, well, what's it like to be at Yale? What did you do when you were there, as a master's student for only, 9 months? What was that like? Those are great conversations to have. Those are reasonable and realistic conversations to have. So this is some excellent resources that can begin to help you with that path. You don't need to be speaking with anyone in our office. You can be using these resources at any given time. Our website is ocs.yale.edu. Again, that's mentioned in a lot of the emails that I've been sending you, so you don't need to necessarily have that memorized. But you do have access to that resource 24/7. You can also make appointments with us through Yale CareerLink, and we hope to see you at some of the events that we offer at the beginning of the fall. I'm sure you'll be hearing from me beyond that. Now, in addition to the show here, I wanted to also make sure that you were aware of Yale CareerLink, and I'll just burn through a couple of quick things because you've likely seen this page as you've completed your incoming master student survey, which thank you for those of you that have done that. It's available right through the survey tab here. This is just your typical home page. You can look at your different positions that are available for all of our students through the jobs tab. I mentioned our employer directory, which is available through the employers tab. And that gives you some really interesting insight in how to look at employers by different industries. So if we're looking at different communications firms, for example, I can do a quick search and I can bring up any number of employers, and I can look at multiple industries at once if I so choose. And when I look at the organization, I get a little overview of the company. I get links to their website, and I also have contacts. So here's Nia. I can email or call Nia. You should probably email over call. I would definitely recommend email is always a better way to go. But if you had questions for Nia about how they establish their recruiting, or how they do their hiring, or how they hire people with advanced degrees such as yours, these are good questions to ask. If you just wanted to know who are the employers in X field, in X region of the country, or X region of the world, again, we have thousands of employers across the globe that you can begin to investigate. The last thing I'll show you is through the resources tab, you have our career shift page, which is a great way for you to, let's see here, begin to search for, you can search for positions, companies, or contacts. So if you had an idea of what kind of company, if the company you were looking for, and I'll just go with a stock easy one here, McKinsey. McKinsey's always an easy one. But you can begin to look at McKinsey company if you're interested in management consulting, for example. And if I was looking at McKinsey, I can also look at the company contacts. I can look for those company contacts by the university that they attended. So if I want to see what Yale alumni work at McKinsey, I find that there are 70 contacts that have a Yale connection. So I'm going to go with Lisa here, for example. I can load all of Lisa's details. I can see where Lisa's been. I can look at her education. I know that she went to Yale for her undergraduate. And then I can find her on LinkedIn. I can send an email. I can begin to engage. Similarly, if I was looking again at that company and wanted to see available positions, I can either just click on jobs, or I can look at the given employer and do a quick search. So these are other ways that you have access currently if you want to just begin to explore. Don't have to have all the answers today, but if you have an idea, sort of a sense of what it is you'd like to do, or I heard about X and I'd like to explore more, you have that opportunity to engage right away, and we invite you to do so. And the very last thing I'll show you is through the career library. You have access to a number of different resources, one of which is our networking resources. So if you just apply the type, you can have access, you will have access to all the different class lists that are available. These are Yale College class lists, but those Yale College students go off into many of the same careers and then now are a couple years out. Maybe they've also pursued master's degrees, and you have access to engage with them. So if we look at the class list of 2016, again, they've probably already gone off and done a couple other things. It's just a simple Excel document, and you can look across the document, search by employer or industry or job function or even major. So if you're IDE and you're like, well, let me see where other folks in economics have gone. Well, this person was at Goldman Sachs, and this is their non-Yale email address. You can reach out to that individual and embark upon a conversation. And you will, in perpetuity, have access to all these resources. So I know that's a lot all at once, but I do want to give an opportunity for you to ask questions of me. And so we'll do that. And I'm going to stop my screen share for a second. And yeah, you are welcome to unmute yourself or put the question in the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, I know this is a lot of information at once, so there's no quiz. You don't have to have all of it today. And you have the ability to contact me at any time, and I'm more than happy to answer these questions as they arise. But if anything is burning, I'm happy to help out.
So I was wondering, when would the careers fairs begin, and given our current situation, what would they look like?
Great question. The beginning of the career fairs will be taking place the week of September 7th. Yeah, so right, very quick. Yusuf, I see your reaction there, yes. So yeah, it is a very quick turnaround. And they will be happening in a virtual format. I do not have more information on what that virtual format looks like at this time, as our employer relations staff is working very diligently on that model. And you will have that information as soon as I have that information. That's my job for you to help you with. But the idea here is that you will want to, at the very least, have a working resume that can speak hypothetically of what you wish to do. If you know you're going to be in clubs X, Y, and Z while you're here at Yale, you can say that like you've joined those clubs, or you anticipate joining those clubs, or you're going to be studying, this path. But we need that narrative constructed, right? Because they're going to say, so what are you looking to do at Yale? And you have to have an answer to that question. Or so, what brings you here today? Why are you interested in this industry? You have to have an answer to that question. These are not hard questions, but they are not good questions to improvise answers to. You want to have thought that through prior to being there. And so as an office, our job is to help make sure that you're best informed of that and sort of realistically aware of what is expected of you during that time.
And can I jump in, Brian?
Yes, absolutely.
So particularly if you think about it, some of these recruiters, people might actually be Yale alums or be familiar with Yale students. They come back year after year, depending on the field. And so they'll know, well, there's a graduate consulting club. And so if you're thinking about consulting and you haven't heard of or thinking about joining the graduate career consulting club, they'll probably think you're not as serious as someone who has thought about joining it or joined it at the orientation activity fair that we'll have had on August 26th. So, they'll know a lot about what stuff you could be doing at Yale or in the wider world, whether it's volunteering or research or student clubs. So you want to sort of think about that as part of, and this is my plug, think about all the co-curricular things you can do outside of class and how they'll help you build both your resume and your career skills. And as Brian said, just figuring out what you want to do.
Yeah, there's a reason that Lisa and I work together on this, is because these interests are inextricably connected, right? Your extracurricular life at Yale, along with your academic life, is what is combined going to help excel you to whatever comes next. And that doesn't mean you need to be a member of 25 clubs. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean that you need to be the president of any of those clubs. Although if you want to be, that's fantastic. It's just about being engaged. And that is a purposefully loose term. Like, you don't need to think of this as like the burden upon you. It's more just leveraging things so you can learn and grow and develop through your time here, as I'm sure you did with your undergraduate experience. So yeah, it's nothing that is need be stressful. It's just about sort of knowledge and awareness. And again, Lisa and her team have put together some excellent opportunities for you to kind of get a quick look. But a lot of this information is available online. If you search Yale GSAS extracurriculars or student clubs, you'll get a list. You'll know exactly what's going on. We're going to talk about campus
They're
groups
all in campus groups, actually,
yeah,
right?
They're all there. So there's more information available there as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I would say, I mean, some people say, oh, I'm going to join the consulting club and the healthcare club, you know, but you can join the salsa club or the knitting club as long as you have a project that you can put on your resume. I sponsored the Knitting for the Homeless fundraiser, and we raised $1,000. You know, that somebody might actually hire you because you knew how to do that.
Every industry values leadership skills. And again, leadership does not need you to be the president of anything. It's just that you show initiative. And the initiative can be exemplified through all of these different clubs and organizations, as Lisa mentioned. There's a question that came in the chat. I'm just going to read the question aloud. Does Yale provide any help for international students for intern or full-time jobs? Since sponsorship is always a problem, especially in this year due to COVID-19. So the sponsorship is taken on by the employer. We understand and admit that that process can be quite complicated for the students in terms of leveraging their IDP time and making sure, or excuse me,
OPT and CPT.
OPT, thank you. I was like, my acronym is off today. Their time with OPT. And so we work extensively with the Office of International Students and Scholars to provide programming over the course of the year so that you can best understand how to work with employers regarding sponsorships, visas, and things of that nature. We also make sure that, well, we aim to work with as many employers as possible that are interested in hiring international students for positions in the United States. But we also want to help empower you that if you are interested in working not in the United States and working abroad, how to also leverage that process and manage that process as well. So that is something that comes up over the course of the year.
And you know, one thing you can do is, because we have Yale alumni around the world, the cross-campus and the Yale Career Link alumni connections can help you find job opportunities or informational opportunities around the world, because because as soon as you start at Yale, you're technically a member of the Yale alumni community. And so you can connect with alums, even if right now you look on the Yale Alumni Association database and find there's some alums in your hometown, you could connect with them now. And that would be a great thing to do just for fun, but also for career opportunities if you want to go to another part of the world or back to your home country.
Yep, absolutely right. And I think that kind of conversation is just saying, what was it like for you when you were going through that process? Or what was it like for you when you were on the job search and looking for a position in, you know, Shanghai or in Paris or wherever? Those are great conversations to have, because the way that they prepare, or the hindsight that they carry with them in terms of what they would do with that process is of great value, and absolutely something that's worth that level of engagement. And again, it's just good to have that conversation and meet those folks with a shared experience. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Yeah, Brian, I have a question.
Yes.
The career fair that starts in September 7th, is that both for people looking for internships in the summer as well as people looking for full-time jobs that start that summer? Is it both?
It's a great question. It is a mix of the both. So we do not have like a sole internship fair versus a job fair. These are employers who will be coming to campus. And this is also just because the industries have sort of adjusted themselves in a way where they show up to campus to kind of do both things at once. That is not to say, and again, jobs and internships don't only get rolled out in September. It's just that these events, the employers that attend these events are coming to sort of show their wares in terms of what their opportunities are or will be. that is not an exclusive or exhaustive list. Over the course of the year, we will have other employers that will come to campus as like one-off events that will be talking about their internship and full-time opportunities. Other employers will still list positions through Yale CareerLink over the course of the year for both full-time and internship positions. Certain industries tend to gravitate towards different times of the year. As I mentioned, we host many of our events in the fall. The reality behind that is that many of the bigger industries of interest, finance, consulting, and technology, tend to hire very early. So that's when a lot of our students are more cognizant of the hiring process, and we thought it was disruptive when those three industries are most highly represented on campus, to say nothing about the nonprofit sector, presents this sort of uneven representation by our office, which is something we didn't want to. We don't do that, and we don't want that to be reflected of us. So we decided, let's invite everybody at once over the course of this like 6-week period, which we do. But that is to say that those positions are also rolled out over the course of the year.
Okay.
Yusuf, what program are you in?
Statistics.
So your program directors will also have lots of information on internships. Oftentimes they'll know about what current students or former students have done. So some of that information will come out through your programs because they know what the rhythms are for people in your fields.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be the spring when they hire for the summer internship. So there'll be a lot of local knowledge in addition to the career-wide, the campus-wide knowledge at OCS. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Kind of follow-up question.
Please.
For the firms that come to campus during the career fairs, what's the timeline that students, so if you attend the career fair in September, usually would they have interviews in October and then offers made in December? Like what's the general timeline for that process? So I can know like where I stand as time goes by.
No, that's a great question. So those employers that come to the career fair with available positions will likely conduct interviews in the weeks following that fair. And those interviews can be as many as 2 or 3 phases. So you may have 2 or 3 interviews for a single position. And then offers would be extended. So if early September, it was when the fair was, you're likely interviewing by late September, and you may have an offer by mid-October or Halloween, end of October. And that offer is one that will likely be, you'll only have maybe 2 weeks to ponder that offer. So a lot of times there's a misnomer that people can like line up all of their job offers at once and make an informed decision about all of them. And unfortunately, that doesn't always work that way. Now, if that's your problem, I'd rather you have that problem than the other problem, right? That's a good problem to have. But it doesn't take away any of the stress or anxiety of it. It makes it challenging. And so again, that's what we're here to help you with. But that would be a timeline if they were actively hiring as they show up to the fair. Sometimes they're there they show up to the fair to say, our positions go live in January. We want you to be aware of our organization. Follow up with us in January when we know what our hiring for May is going to be. And so we get different permutations of what this can look like. But for the good old fashioned, we're here to hire people today, that's the timeline.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So if I could follow a bit on to that previous question, would this career fair, the one coming around the 7th of September,
multiples,
yes,
not
multiple
just one.
fairs.
Yeah, that's what I was
they
asking
are
about.
in that vicinity. Yeah, just to be clear. Sorry. Go
So
ahead.
it isn't like the career fairs will be done, say, per sector and stuff. It isn't just a general mix of different sectors.
How many
are there? Sorry, Lisa?
How many are there?
There are 12, and they are chunked by, for lack of a better term, industry. So you'll see like healthcare consulting, and that fair on that day is a dozen or 2 dozen firms rooted in healthcare consulting. Some are a little bit more broad. So we have a nonprofit fair, and that would be, maybe 2 dozen employers rooted in various organizations in the nonprofit sector. So there's different terminology to use. And then a lot of times people get thrown, or people focus on the term industry. Industry is like an environment. Then there's job function, which is like sort of the nuts and bolts, the muscle of what you're doing, the functional element of the job, the skill that is being leveraged. So I can work in a role, if I have a background in economics, I can work in the investments office at a baseball team. right? My job function is finance, but my industry is athletics. So there's lots of different ways to look at what it is you're interested in. That's why we root our assessments on values, interests, and skills. If you're only looking at skills, we think of everything in a very vocational sense. Like, I'm an economics major, I'm an IDE major, so I'm going to go work at a bank. Well, that's not necessarily the case all the time. If you're a statistics major, as Yusuf is, that means you're only going to go do X, and that's untrue as well. This is a liberal arts institution, right? So the idea is, like, we want you to think about where your interests lie, and then you can find how the skill can be leveraged within that interest area. And that's where, you like your job. Wouldn't that be wonderful, right? So that's the idea behind that. So this is why that exploration component is necessary. Now, there's a question that came in. This is a big question. It's an important question, so I'm going to read it. If they asked if I could share a bit about securing work visas in the U.S. What kind of support, if any, does the office offer in this regard, or does a student work directly with the company offering a role? So this is a huge question, very important. I won't get to all the details of it today, but first and foremost, you need to be working with the Office of International Students and Scholars, if you are an international student, to best understand the visa process and your OPT process. OISS, that office, is your best resource there. My office can help you in terms of understanding how that process is impacted in your job search. When it comes to securing a work visa for a given position, the employer owns the visa is sort of tied to the job. So you would work intrinsically with that employer about that position. There's a lot of nuance here, and I will admit sometimes this stuff changes faster than we want it to. But the idea is that there are absolutely resources in play here at Yale University to help you best understand that process. I'm sort of the jobs guy, and OISS, my colleague over there, Parker, he's like the visa guy. And so we try to make our sort of demarcations very clear, because I know in working with him and working with his office, I've developed a mild understanding of the nuance of the visa process, and he's understood a nuanced sense of the job search process, but we each have our own sort of distinct territories. But again, the programming that we offer over the course of the year, and I believe our first session will be as early as maybe October, will give you a better sense of what that sort of dance looks like. But ultimately, the employers and OISS will have most of those answers, but I'm more than happy to help where and however I can. But I'm always happy to admit my limitations as well.
And I'll just say that it's been a very difficult year, we know, for international students, for any students who care about diversity and international and multicultural issues in the United States. It's been things that weren't politicized have been politicized. And we know that there may be some changes coming in the fall and maybe even in January, depending on the election, so that you may be facing a very different environment in the spring than you were in the fall, and things may change for both employers and students and job seekers. We can't promise you anything, but we know that the situation is very fluid. So as Brian said, just keep it together, don't freak out, and talk to the folks at OISS who are very responsive, and also very, if any of you were worried about the back and forth in July, a lot of that happened because people at Yale and Harvard and our Congress members pushed back on what they thought were unrealistic government rules, and we got some changes. So, I'm a political science researcher by training, so in some ways, it's all political.
Absolutely. Any other questions before we get over?
Sorry to be asking so many questions.
No, this is good. Thank you.
Lisa, you mentioned all about like the campus groups that would be good to get involved with. I was just wondering, given our current situation, what would campus groups kind of look like going in this?
We're trying to figure that out. Many of them have always had, the salsa club might be a little hard, but they may have virtual salsa or socially distant salsa outdoors. But the consulting club had a lot of practices and a lot of alumni networking, as did Women in Science and the Students in Engineering, the Chinese Students Association. So a lot of people did a lot of programming that was alumni or industry people coming and talking. So we think a lot of that will probably happen in Zoom, but we don't know. we're in a better position here in Connecticut, but we still have a lot of regulations, but you got to think of yourself, this is the long game. It'll be the next year for some of you, the next 2 years, or maybe even 3 years if you're in a dual degree program. So, it'll change, but you learn some stuff, because guess what? A lot of people are finding that this online education and meetings is a great tool to have. So if you ran an online conference, wow, someone will think that's a great skill. So don't have a good answer. How about anybody else who hasn't asked a question? Some women, some people from around the world. Not that we don't love you, Eric and Yusuf.
Anybody.
And if you don't like talking, you can always type.
Yeah. Well, while people muster their courage, I will add that whatever we're going through right now is a universally shared experience. And therefore, like any challenges that you face via this role, it will not be difficult to explain it to other people, because they will all have known exactly what you are going through. So I don't think we need to look at anything as like lessened in any way. It is just a matter of how you speak of it. And that's, again, more of the narrative constructive component that we've talked about today. All right, well, with the any last call here? Any last call for questions?
Brian, do you want to throw up your email in the chat so people, if they have a question afterwards?
Absolutely. I'll put my email in there right now. And without further ado, we're going to move along to my wonderful colleague, Becca, who is going to talk to you. And yeah, we'll go from there. Becca, without further ado.
All right. Hey, everyone. So we've been working hard to create spaces for virtual community and learning for this upcoming year, and we want to get your input on how to best shape those spaces. So Brian's going to roll out a couple poll questions for you to answer. Okay, here we go. So we have, what is your favorite type of virtual group activity? And what topics are you interested in discussing with fellow students?
So please respond to the poll, and we'll get a sense of where you're at. Well, there's more of you than that. There we go. Be brave. It's okay. So it seems like people are getting used to life on Zoom.
Okay.
All right, we got 13 of 16 have voted, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right.
Decent participation rate. Great. So yeah, we just want to know, to know exactly what students want in terms of the types of ways that they will engage with each other. So this will be helpful for us. And as you've heard, Campus Groups is going to be the hub for student engagement. And we're very much pioneering into this new landscape together, starting this summer. So you all have a big role in shaping what it looks like as you let us know your preferences and start engaging on there. So on this platform, you're going to find information on events, student groups, and have opportunities to connect. So I'm going to walk you through some of it right now.
So this is the thing that we invited you into on Monday, and you signed up for this on Monday or Tuesday. So you're just getting started. So it's really launching for you and for everyone on campus. So it's new to everyone at Yale.
Right. So here we are. And as you can see, some events that are coming up will appear here, and then groups that you are involved in, and you will be automatically added to most of these as they pertain to what programs you're in. And so we're going to start by going to the new first year students group. Okay, and I want to bring your attention to the checklist we've created for you, particularly related to the career orientation.
And this is what Becca sees because she's an officer, so you may see something slightly different, but.
Right.
So if you go over to the left, you'll see my checklist and you'll see versions of this, but she gets the report on who did stuff.
Yeah, such power. Okay, and then a few of these initial items reiterate what Brian has sent you in emails over the course of the summer. And this is just a way to track how much of that you've done going forward. So here, yes, and see. And a couple of these are short videos that Brian mentioned that walk you through certain aspects of the job search process in an easy, digestible form. And here's the webinar, which you're all at. Great job. Here we go. Yeah, and a lot of these things Brian has talked you through them. But again, this is just a way to keep track of how far you are along the way of going through all of them. One thing I wanted to emphasize that is particular to the campus group platform is that, and it's a number 10 on the list here, identifying your interests. We've asked you to make a list of a couple interest areas and add them to your member profile on campus group.
So that's your head over there. So you click on your head over on the right, your head all the way over on the right, and that's where your profile lives, your face, your actual face.
Right, yes. You gotta move the Zoom icon first. Yeah, so here is where you can find your own account information, but you can also,
yeah, in the group you can tag yourself. So there's a profile and there's tags, and in the group Becca's created a bunch of career tags that you if you go to I think members, yeah, you can tag yourself.
So I've just gone on members, which I can get to from the home page, and member groups will be added to automatically based on your program. But here's the subgroup tags, and here we have a few options for career goals that you can click according to your interests, and then also where are you from, so you can, if you want to find people from similar areas, and then just other sorts of interests. If you want to put in one that is not included, you can also just click edit subgroup tags and include your own. And this will allow us to create targeted, programming targeted to your interests, and also create some forums for you to discuss your interests with other students, which is another function on here that we haven't built out yet because we are waiting on your input and preferences, but that'll live right here.
So forum's kind of like a bulletin board or discussion board. It's not as scrolly as Facebook. It's more kind of like bulletin boards or Reddits maybe. So we're trying to figure out what do people want to talk about. We'll create some categories, help you create some categories based on, and we can tag them using your subgroup tags.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So, yes, so we want to start the community building process. And to do that, we're going to break you up into groups to chat amongst yourselves. And so the first thing you should all do is give a 1 to 2 minute elevator pitch, just going through your background, your skills, and what you're looking for in a job. And then you can go around and talk about what sorts of virtual community you'd like to see this year. If you have any suggestions you'd like to share with us, you can feel free to message the host on this Zoom call.